and I want to ask you where tort reform would fit into this equation. Because when I think of things like, even like truck parking, 10, 15 years ago, we parked at the consignee or the shipper. That way we'd be there to get loaded or we'd be ready to get unloaded. And now you can't do things like that because of the liability that is sitting out there. And with all the nuclear verdicts that you see going on, and I would just like to get your input on what you see as a specific, if you see a need for tort reform out there on the federal level. I know that we're running a lot of cases now. We're trying to move them to the federal bench in transportation with interstate commerce.
Let me go back to the parking. I think, you're correct. For many years, you were able to park at the consignee or the shipper. And what's happened, I guess in planning, a lot of times they don't plan for enough of the traffic that's coming in for their daily input or output. And so a lot of times that isn't possible. And then, as you mentioned, because of the liabilities, and you talked about inflation, and before I touch on tort reform, we've seen our insurance, our total insurance package, I'm not going to say strictly liability, increase since 2020, 42% over the last 5 years. And it is big for us. And a lot of it is because of, I'm going to say, nuclear verdicts or things that take place out in the industry and buying insurance. And the association has worked through the state federations, state by state, to change some of the laws. And I'm just going to mention one very quickly, and that's the seatbelt gag rule. You can have an accident and be severe injuries, but the injuries maybe are caused by the person being ejected from the vehicle because they didn't have their seatbelt. But that's not admissible in court in the state of North Carolina.
Or anywhere.
There's a few states that it has been changed, but for the most part. But touching on the tort reform, I guess there's three things from a federal level, and that's making it a crime to stage accidents, putting an end to third-party financing. And if you don't know what third-party financing, I would challenge you to go to YouTube and look at a few years back, 60 Minutes did a episode on third-party financing. But what they do is they tell you it's a lot better investment than in the stock market, the returns. But the final being to move claims to the federal court. When I say claims, accidents, and maybe it's a certain dollar, whether it's a $750 million claim or $750,000 claim, which is the minimum insurance, or if it's $1 million. I know this would maybe tax the federal courts, but we need some type of protection in our industry from these runaway claims.
Yeah, no, and I agree, and I appreciate your response.